All right, we are 2 days out from the Shaw Classic out in Loveland, Colorado, and I'm sitting here in a hotel in Galway in Ireland and flying out tomorrow. So I felt like it was probably an appropriate time to do a little bit of a preview for the Shaw Classic, do a few predictions, and let's see how it turns out. So the field on paper is unbelievable. I mean, obviously you have Brian. You've got Tom and Luke, you've got Bobby Thompson, you've got Alexei Novikov, Evan Singleton. Apologies to all the guys who aren't off the top of my head. But outside of Martins, you basically have the whole strength world here. Now, I think it's a little bit tainted in a way because I don't think Tom and Luke are at 100%. In fact, I know that they aren't in terms of taking a little bit of time focusing on other things. I think Alexei might have tweaked something over the weekend. I think that's pretty much healed up. So hopefully he's 100% good to go. I'm sure Brian's running around like a chicken with his head cut off, making sure that this all runs smooth. And then you've got Evan, who's definitely coming in with something to prove after what's happened in the last couple of events to him. So then you have Trey. Trey's obviously a big one, defending champion, and really doesn't have any holes. I think people just don't talk as much about Trey because he doesn't talk as much about himself. But he's really in that territory with Alexei, Martins, and Tom in terms of capability. So let's go event by event. I'm just going to give my top three in no particular order and how I think it'll shake out in the end. So first is the max hammer tire deadlift. Obviously, this is a little bit elevated. Then by the time the weights come off the ground, for most of us, the bar's above our knees. I've never done this exactly. I trained as best I could and replicated as close as I could. And it went really well. Obviously, my focus is more on the big deadlift this past weekend. I've pulled up pretty well from that. And I certainly think I'll be able to get to a number in the high 400s. And from there, we'll see. But in this event, I think Trey and Brian will join me as top three in this event. Brian said his training's not going so good for it, but his experience and his pedigree on that implement, I don't imagine he's going to underperform on the day. And like I said, Trey is Trey. Event number two, by the way, I don't think we'll see anyone beat JF Caron's record in that one. That's just a massive, massive number. And Bish is another one who's going to come out and potentially Bish with his strength above the knee could have had a chance. But I don't think we're going to see it. Hopefully we do, but I don't think we will. Event number two is bag over bar. Well, we have a lot of bags. So it's two bags at 22, 25, 27, and 29 kilos for 8 bags total over a 4.5 meter bar. Again, when it comes to myself, I really haven't been tested at this level with this event yet, and it's one of the only ones left that I really haven't been able to do. That being said, I thrive when things are explosive. I thrive when we're moving around, and I think that's going to hold with the bag toss. Training's going pretty good for it, and the most encouraging thing is when I do my training rep after rep after rep, they all pretty much stay the same height. I don't lose power very quickly, meaning that I should be able to run through all of those bags and maybe only have to do an extra swing on the 29 kilos or something like that. But that event is really about not making mistakes. And, you know, if I don't make mistakes, that's definitely a top three. I think Brian and Max, both really, really good at this event. And then Trey, between the four of us, I think that makes up the top three on that event. I mean, you're leaving Evan out there as well. And yeah, clean run. Evan's really good as well. He's really quick. So I think that's the top three in that one, or the people who will comprise the top three anyway. Then we got super yoke, 506 kilos, 20 meters. I'm finally going to be able to shine in the yoke, I think. When it gets real heavy like that, as people have seen in my training videos, and a lot of guys that I meet, the first thing they say to me is that, how do you yoke 500 kilos without knee sleeves on? And it's just something that comes super natural to me. So for the 500 kilos, 20 meters, I imagine I'll be sub 20 seconds. Last year winning time was 30 seconds by Evan, and I believe it's a very similar setup. So I'll give myself the event win on that, and I think Evan and Trey would join me as top 3 for that event. Next is Dumbbell For Reps. This one's been going really well for me. This is 110 kilos for maximum reps in 75 seconds. And even since I've performed fairly well at the Strongman Classic, I've gotten heaps better with the dumbbell. Just listening to some advice from some different people, I've been working really hard to find ways to get my hand higher. And for me, it's been shifting weight over to the right side and raising up, almost tilting my torso. And that's led to a gym PB, which is 120 kilos, and I tripled it. So I tend to believe that with my engine, I should be able to get quite a number of reps on this, certainly over 5. That being said, we have a couple of the best dumbbell pressers in the world in Alexi and Trey. So I think us 3 will make up the top of the podium for that one. You can see there's a trend forming. I backed myself on the first day quite a bit. I also backed Trey on the first day quite a bit, and Evan. So I think after day 1, myself, Evan, and Trey will comprise the top 3. Then kicking on to day 2, we have the leg press, which is 2,000 kilos. Or sorry, log press first. And log press is you either choose a 172, a 186, or a 200 log. The way they're doing this is really interesting, because if you push for the 200 log and you don't get it, you zero the event, even if you would have got 5 on the 186 log. So 1 rep on 200 is going to be pretty close to putting you top 3 in that event. I imagine 2 reps definitely gets it for you. And I'm in a really tough position where I know I could do the 200 log for a couple of reps on a good day, and on a bad day, it might not be there. So that's a real pressure one for me. And if I go through to do well in this event, it's going to be because that 200 log feels pretty good on the day. That being said, there's definitely 3 guys that will beat me even on a good day, and that's Bobby, that's Max, and that's Trey. Bobby's strict pressing 200 kilos is ridiculous. I can't even fathom that personally. But hopefully I can be not far behind those guys. And the only reason I leave someone like Luke Stoltman off is just because I don't think he's coming in top form. And I'd be pretty impressed if he pressed the 200 log, not training much. I'd be impressed, but I'd also be a bit pissed. Moving on to the frame, which is 363 kilos into an arm over arm, which is 318 kilos. I don't understand how the arm over arm was 318 kilos, like to actually pull that in that manner. I'm gonna have to go look at the Shaw Classic from last year and figure out exactly how that's done, because that seems way too heavy to me. I know there was quite a few guys who didn't get it off the ground, and I see why. 318 kilos trying to pull it on a rope. So look, I don't really know. On this one, I'm just going off people who did well in the event last year, and based on their other event results, their physical characteristics, who's probably going to be top 3 in my mind in this, and that's Evan, that's Brian, and that's myself. I think you got to have a really good combination of moving fairly well, grip strength, that's pretty good. Deadlift's got to be pretty good because you're deadlifting that rope up. And last year, Trey didn't move that arm over arm. So for his sake, I'm hoping that he's able to improve that result a little bit and he can get himself up towards the top 5 in that event. Because last year, I believe he lost 11 points on that event and he still won, which sort of shows you how strong Trey is, how consistent Trey is in every other event. Next is the car leg press. This is 2,000 pounds, but they're about 2,000 pounds, but it's at 35 degrees, not 45 degrees, which if you know your sine, cos, and tan, your trigonometry, obviously that's gonna feel like less weight than 2,000 on the leg press. We're gonna be doing it down 2 safeties, so it'll be dead stop each time. In training, I got 2,000 pounds for 8. I imagine there'll be more than that on the day. I think this is going to be a punishing event. I think people don't realize how many reps it'll take to get a good result on this, but I think it's going to be greater than 15. So I've got Brian, just because if one, he's trained the implement before, obviously. 2, his thighs are so big and his torso is so big, you get a lot of compression off that you can use that power. Then I'm going Trey, just because Trey seems to be pretty good at everything. And I'm going myself as well. I haven't seen anyone match what I've done in training, and I think I'll be up there. Now, I've put out there that I'm worried about getting hurt on the car leg press, and I'm worried about a lot of guys getting hurt, and I think people are misinterpreting it as I think that the car is going to fall or the engineering won't be right, which I'm sure it will, and I don't have too many concerns about that. But for guys that are as strong as we are, if you take any amount of control away from it, i.e. you're just telling us push into this as hard as you can, I worry about ligaments and tendons, particularly tendons. I just think if you're contracting as hard as you can, we're looking at hamstrings, groins, and quads that hopefully the tendons are condition of everyone, but I could see a circumstance where someone, more than one person even, gets themselves in a bad way during that leg press. So it's very possible that I'm doing that and I choose to stop prematurely because something doesn't feel right. So that's a little bit of reservation I have on that one. But I think still a pretty good result there for me. Next is Atlas stones. I'm really happy about this. Atlas stones, it's a heavy set across the board, all to 1.3 meters, starting at 158 kilos and going up to 204 kilos. So the last weight, not super heavy, but we're starting much heavier than we have in giants, which eliminates the small fumble of a stone, taking you way back into placings. It's really going to be a better test of overall stone capability than what I think the 100 to 180 or 120 to 200 is. I think there's a pretty clear top three for this one though, in Brian, Trey, and Max. Which actually, come to think of it, I'm putting Tom out of the top three. But I think so, to be honest. I think not coming in form against those guys who have trained specifically for this event, I'll be pretty impressed if Tom can still come in and beat them. I'll be impressed, but I won't be surprised, I suppose I should say. So that's my predictions across all of the events. In terms of podium, obviously a few things need to go right for each person for this to be able to happen. But I think I'm going to be on the podium. I think Trey's definitely going to be on the podium. And then one of Brian or Evan. If Evan comes in, he does the whole event healthy, he's a force to be reckoned with. And I told him I've gone against him 3 times. At Worlds, at Giants Live in London, and Giants Live in Cardiff. And I beat him all 3 times, but I told him, you're taking my ability to beat you away when you keep running into these things, and it's bumming me out a little bit. So I hope he comes 100%, and I hope that we can go head to head. I'd love to be side by side with him on the yoke, push each other a little bit there. But looks like it's going to be a really fun event. So many people have talked about how fun it is, the guys who were there last year, how well run it is, how well the athletes are taken care of. So we'll see. The guys who competed last weekend are certainly at a bit of a disadvantage, which is myself, Evan, and Alexi. But I probably feel 85% at the moment. If I could get that up over 90 for day one, then that's just being an athlete and understanding that most times you're not feeling 100% going into anything and just getting through it. So that's my recap. Top 3 overall on the day. I'm going myself, I'm going Trey, and I'm going Brian or Evan. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you very much for watching, and lift heavy, be kind.